Are you ready for the Low Blows Network?
So this is one of my favourite times of the year. I have to say, like, it's just so many hobbies at one time, all coming together. It's amazing. And for the second episode of Nash, there was only really one way we can go. By the way, thank you so much for to everyone who got in touch. The outpouring of support I got after the first episode. Very kind of nerve-wracking episode to put out there, but I really appreciate it. You know, when that gets a good response, it's like you can just fucking breathe. Yeah, I really appreciate people getting onto me, both publicly and in private. It was much obliged. But this year, or this time of year, every year, I go fucking crazy because, like, you know, when there's not an international tournament or something on, summer can seem kind of like we lean a lot on wrestling. Unfortunately, it's been a good wrestling summer with a lot going on with AEW and the G1 and all that kind of stuff. So, but then like other stuff starts to come back. So the football came back a few weeks ago. NFL is coming back, which means that now is right in the heart of NFL fantasy football season, and that is my jam. Like, that is one of my hobbies. Like, I would personally love, if I had the time of the day to start a 27th podcast, it would be a fantasy football podcast. And also as well, really big weekend in Irish sport because it just so happens to be one of the most historic All-Ireland finals ever, as the Dubs go to be the first team ever to complete the drive for 5. Several teams have tried and they all fall at the last hurdle. So, to address it all, I had to catch up with an old friend, a person you may know and be familiar with from listening to that very song that opened us up on this episode of Nash. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a Paddy's New Yacht reunion show, and joining me is the one and only David Kent. Kento, how are you? You must be as buzzing as me throughout all this. Like, this is fucking sports fan heaven, this period.
Absolutely, because as you mentioned, this weekend you got the All-Ireland final. Next week you got 2 Euro 2020 qualifiers for Ireland. And then we're into the NFL season. We've got the Bears and the Packers on Thursday night as well. And what am I missing out here? There's World Athletics Championships next month, which is like, there's just, from here until about March, there's just everything is happening. Yeah. Like, then you're into Christmas time, you're into the World Darts Championship. Yeah. February, you're getting the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Oh, it's just this is where I just like to sit back and put my feet up and just take it all in.
The Rugby World Cup as well this year as well, like on top of the normal schedule. So, yeah, no, look, we had to do a sports show to kind of mark it all and kind of give our own kind of thoughts and just have a chat as well, because like I want to talk about all of this with someone. And Kento, you're the guy to talk about all this stuff with. So, first off, let's talk about our fantasy, like, Premier League before we get into NFL fantasy, which is the real fantasy football for the record. But like, now I have to say, like, I always slag Fantasy Premier League. Now I'm obsessed with it because this year I'm really fucking good. I am riding that Timu Pucky bandwagon all the way to the top of pretty much all my leagues. I shit you not. Puggy and Sterling, Pukey, I know. I'll call him Pucky. But like, and okay. Sterling are leading me all the way. Like, Sterling, first week, put him as my captain. 50 fucking points right after the start. I'm dying. Like, I'm loving it. Like, my main goal for fantasy football this season is now, well, I'm in a league in work where, like, there's, I think, 500 quid on the line for the winner. So I want to win that. And also, plan B, win the OTT league so they have to awkwardly dance around that back. And they're like, oh. Well, like some mysterious fan would it. Kento, but you're having a good season as well. What's going right for you in fantasy football this year?
I started brilliantly. I got 93 points, and I actually took a screenshot of my leagues because I was topping all of them. I'm in about 10 or 12 across everything. And I was topping all of them, bar maybe 2 or 3 where I was like 1 or 2 points off. Because I started with, what did I have? Captain Kane, Sterling and Salah on the opening. I basically made sure to have those 3. They're going to be my kind of locks for the year. No, yes, everyone will have them. Yeah. But then the week after, I got something like 40 because Salah did nothing, Kane did nothing. I think Spurs might have drawn or lost. But Kane, none of them did that, and so I kind of dropped back down. And then last week, kind of steadied a bit more, so hopeful now for this week. Listen, I always say, I'll never really finish top. If I get top 5, that's all I'm asking for. I'm average. If I can be slightly above average for something, I'm grand. That's all I want.
I think this year might be the year, because now with the new job, I'm kind of able to mess around on the computer as well during work, like if it's not busy, and I'm able to kind of tinker with my fantasy football team. So I think this might be the year I actually pay attention, and like maybe that could reap the benefits, because like my theory on fantasy football is that the person who wins your league is the only person who played the 38 weeks of the season. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of the way it is, because it becomes samey after a while. Like, there isn't much variance in it the way there is with NFL. But this year, I think, is the year. But here's the thing, right? Like, what a season it is already in the Premier League. Like, it's Arsenal are on like 6 points, and like Man United are on 4 points, and they're still like in the hunt. Like, they're still in the fucking European positions at this stage. Like, because it's like, it's that even. Everyone is beating everyone, like, except for Liverpool and Man City still look a cut above the rest so far. Spurs making an absolute tick of me. They were my big thing. My theory at the start of the season was, I think Liverpool are going to, like, now not that Liverpool were going to go bad, but I thought, like, Liverpool, they just seemed like Spurs last year, where they had a squad that was running on empty, and they had a lot of early season games, like, that they didn't need, like the Charity Shield, the European Super Cup and stuff like that. And then even, like, getting the likes of Firmino back late from the summer and stuff like that. So they were just coming in slightly more fatigued than other teams and having a busier schedule, that I could just see that running out of steam. And that could still well happen. That was the case with Spurs, because they had all of their squad was in the World Cup last year. And I predicted the Spurs were going to be like the team that would challenge City, but City would still run away from it. Now it looks like Liverpool and City still clearly the best, but everyone else, like, around the same quality, because everyone's beating everyone. It's a nightmare. Thank God we're not doing Paddy's new yacht anymore, because we wouldn't have a fucking hope at Anaka this year. Like, it's a nightmare, but it's really entertaining. What are you kind of getting from this season? Is it all about Liverpool and City again, or do we have a few more twists in the tail?
You see, I was routinely mocked in the Daily Star office for using that exact same logic as you did with Spurs and Liverpool. I actually put money on it, like the little sweepstakes we had, that it will be City finishing top, and considerably so, comfortably so. Spurs somehow overcoming that deficit of 18 points that it was last year. Yeah, it's not looking too well for me now to finish second. It is open enough, but remember how a couple of years, like, there's always one team who is in the top 4 in August and September, and then they kind of fall away from it a bit. Yeah, that's United this year. Sorry to burst your bubble, but we always have it. I'm liking the two of the three promoted sides. I'm liking how Aston Villa are playing, and I'm liking how Sheffield United are playing. I don't know if Timu Pukki is the 20-goal striker that Norwich need to stay up. I'd be more concerned about them than the other two. Sheffield United made some unbelievable signings for a limited budget, like Callum Robinson, and then bringing in Jagielka for the Premier League experience as well, to already add to someone like Billy Sharp, who any Championship League 1, League 2 fan knows about Billy Sharp and his goal scoring record. So I think they'll be all right. But yeah, no, in terms of the top 4, I still think it'll be the same old crew: Spurs, City, Liverpool, Arsenal. Not in that order, of course. I still think City run away with it. Yeah,
I think, like, Sheffield United are undoubted pleasant surprises of the Premier League season so far, but, like, I don't know. I don't see this lasting. Like, the squad is thin, threadbare, and heart only gets you so far in the Premier League. Eventually, like, injuries are going to start kicking in. I think Sheffield United are going down. And I think Chris Wilder, like, great manager. He's one of these great championship managers who deserves respect and credit. And, like, but when you look at him, like, he looks like if Neil Warnock and Steve Bruce made it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he looks like the definition of a championship manager. Like, if you look at his face, put him beside those two, that's what he looks like. I'm just saying, like, and like, but that's who he is. He's a great championship manager, and he's going to play with heart, and he's going to be, you know, Sheffield United are going to turn into everyone's second favourite team this year. But I just don't see the squad depth there. Like, I think they're probably going to be a bit like Cardiff last year, where they're an awkward team for people to play, and nobody wants to play them necessarily, and they lose games against good teams 2-1 or 1-0, but they don't have the quality in the end to kind of put up a fight. I don't know about them. One team that are kind of catching me off guard are Brighton. Like, under Graham Potter, like, is this like something that we actually have to keep an eye on? Like, we always talk about on Paddy's new yacht, we talked about like who the new Burnley were going to be last season, i.e. that team who kind of, overperformed and surprised people by coming up. And then Wolves were kind of that team. They were the best of the rest. Could Brighton be in the hunt for that? Are they just after sneaking up out of nowhere where kind of nobody believes in us logic?
Like, the day before the transfer window closed, I said that Brighton were in the bottom three and alongside Newcastle and alongside Norwich. And then they made a couple of signs on the internet that made me sit up and take notice. One of them is Neil Maupay, who our old friend Daz at 1889 will tell you is a serious footballer. He will get a load of goals. Maybe not a load in the Premier League, but he is a talent. He's naturally talented and he will fit into the Premier League eventually. Aaron Moy from Huddersfield on loan. Yeah. What a signing that was as well to shore up in midfield. You've got Trossard and obviously Alariza Jahangbash, second season. He's going to come good, I'm telling you now. So I don't know if they'll be best of the rest, but I'd say like they went from 19th to about 14th or 13th in the table in my predictions. Don't get me wrong, love that club. Brilliant stadium. The stuff for the away fans as well. Do you ever hear about what they do at the Amex?
No, what is it?
So they get a local brewery from wherever the away side is from, and they put that in as the match day drink for them. Aww. They get local food in, they get snacks, etc. They change the colour of the fan zone to whatever it is. So for like Wolves, it'll be gold and black, United red and white. It's just real clever. There's little things like that I'm like trying to make the away fans there, and it makes me like a club.
Yeah.
So yeah, listen, be happy enough they stay up. I don't know about Graham Potter as a coach. He's may surprise us all in the vein of Chris Wilder. But yeah, look, I think it's going to be an absolute dogfight for relegation, but they'll be all right.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I like Graham Potter. I love his backstory, and then you learned about it like a lot of people this summer, where like he came from being like fucking, what was it, the Swedish second division to like taking the team to play Arsenal in the Europa League last year. Like, so I like his backstory. I love to see him succeed. I love those come from nowhere managers who like you don't know, and then they just have this amazing backstory where they've just grafted. It's kind of like, how you imagine yourself in FIFA when you're managing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh yeah, I started off at a small Finnish club, like, where my mate was the chairman, and now I'm managing Man United and win the Champions League. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of that backstory. So I'm into it. Brighton might be my second favourite team for the year. There's so much to discuss, but so little time. So let's get on to the All-Ireland. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the drive for 5. We've seen this twice before, like in all of GA, like once in football with Kerry, and then in of course more recently in the hurling with Kilkenny. And the one thing we see is, both times they fell at the final hurdle. Like, that's a thing. It turns out it's really tough to win 5 All-Irelands in a row. Shock horror. But so far in the championship this year, it hasn't looked like that's going to happen. Now, Kendo, I didn't want to bring this up, but, well, I did, to be honest. Do you remember you predicted the Dubs were going to go out in the Super 8?
Yeah. Yeah, that's... Again, Paddy's New Yacht special there, really. Don't ever take either of our advice on anything. It's not worth it.
No, but okay, right. So you did say that this was the year the Dubs were going to fall apart. Now, as we're staring down the barrel and we've seen the Dubs, we've seen Con O'Callaghan just stepping up and becoming an absolute, even when Diarmuid Connolly's coming back, Con O'Callaghan has become the new Diarmuid Connolly, just taking over the game and dominating and being that force who's the guy who can turn a game on its head. And they're adding all these new weapons to an already super successful and dominant Arsenal. do Kerry have any chance this Sunday? Is there any chance? Do you still think that the Dubs may fall? Do you think that the drive for 5 curse is real? How are you kind of getting yourself interested in this? And are you able to convince yourself that this will be anything more than the Dubs just mauling them?
If they do win, I don't think it'll be a mauling at all. There's two things that Kerry need to get right on Sunday, and one of them is the most important one is their own kickouts. If you saw the Dublin Mayo semi-final, Mayo went 12 minutes without winning any of their own kickouts because the Dublin press just broke them down. It was in the first 12 minutes of the second half, and Dublin got 1-6 out of it, and the game was finished. Now, that may have come down to Mayo's lack of weapons themselves. They have the O'Shea runners, but going forward, then they had a bit of trouble. Whereas Kerry, yes, by far, Dublin's still by far the most talented squad, the best squad in the country. But Kerry have a lot of weapons in attack as well. Like the young David Clifford, David Moran is in there. You got a couple in the old heads as well. Brian Sheen's still around. And then they have Dublin will try and set up with this 12-man kind of zonal press that they always have, and it's a success. But it's never on their own kickouts, of course, because they have the ball then anyway. Mm-hmm. So Kerry need to adapt to that. There's a brilliant piece by Conan Doherty on Sports Show last weekend on how basically the three things Kerry could do. And I think they're going to have to do one to try and break that. The other thing is, it's so simple to say, but much harder to do. Don't let them get too far ahead because they're serious front runners. The biggest test that they've had so far this year, ironically, which no one would have predicted at the start of the year, came against Cork in the Super 8s in the first game, where Cork stuck with them for 60 minutes. They went man-on-man. They had the fitness. And then the last 10 minutes, Dublin scored 3 goals. Yeah. And it was just like, yeah, you know what? We'll give you a chance for this hour. We'll give you 2 points. And then, sorry, you're gone.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I can really see anyone beating this Dublin side with is to blitz them early. Is to get goals early and not get as far ahead, but just keep yourselves within 1 point of deficit. Because if it gets any more than that, Gavin is he has them like a well-oiled army machine that he'll just keep rolling and he will just wear you down. It's an interesting one. I'm just delighted that it is in Tyrone because like last year I was at Electric Picnic and I was queuing up to see the match and eventually I just went, you know what, it's not worth it. Whereas now there is a bit of interest. There is the whole Yera, that's a word a lot of people will have seen in the build-up, Yera, it's Kerry. And that's the mantra they love as underdogs. They love that Yera attitude. And there's a lot of factors as well. You've got the referee, which I didn't really like Kerry doing. I didn't really like talking about the ref and how he was working in Dublin. I mean, come on, he's living in Meath. Of course he's going to be working in Dublin. That's just how the economy is. Yeah. But now, will David Goff listen to that? Will he impact some of his decisions on Sunday? I don't see how it can't. There's a lot of factors. Do I still think St. Dubs will fall? I think it's unlikely, but I think they have to for the GAA's own benefit.
Yeah, do you know what though? And this may surprise some people, and I'm not jumping on the bandwagon here, all right? But now, for years I've been quite open about this. I'm like, I want the Dubs to lose. It's more interesting when it's a competitive championship and I want someone to be able to beat them and set the format. And I want to see them be beatable in the championship. Of course, we've seen it in the league, but the league doesn't count, ultimately. But I want to see that. But now, when it's this close to history happening and when it's getting the chance to see the first ever 5-time in a row champions, I kind of am leaning towards the Dubs, but I love this final setup, because if we think about it, how did it all start for this generation of Dublin dominance? It started in a final against a dominant Kerry team where they were the underdogs. What a way to finish it. There is it's the perfect final in a way. Dublin Kerry, it had to, if they're going to complete history or if they're going to be denied it, it has to be against Kerry. They're the old foe. They're the only team in Gaelic football who ever had a shot at 5 in a row before. It's the perfect final on paper. But the problem is that then a game has to happen. And then in those games, we've seen it so many times. Even in the Mayo game it was relatively competitive in the first half. I wouldn't go as far as to say exciting. It was competitive, and Mayo were in the game. They were leading at half time, but even then, like, we were like, yeah, this ain't gonna last long. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, yeah, all right, we know what happens, and it happened. So that's been kind of the problem with Dublin's dominance, because they just kind of switch on. And even again in that game of Cork, like, you know what I mean? It literally felt like they were just kind of giving themselves something to work towards. Like, you know what I mean? We have to make the game competitive for ourselves, so we're just going to play in like third gear for 60 minutes and then just turn it on and win the game in the 70th minute. To the point that at the end of the game against Cork, like, it must have been heartbreaking for you. Like, the end of the game, it was like, this is bullying now. This is actually bullying. But like 10 minutes ago, Cork were right in this. I don't understand how this has happened, but that's what Dublin do. And I fear that that's what we're going to get. But I kind of want to see history at this stage. They've come this far. It'd be horrible to kind of like invest so much and then like be at the end of it. Like, we felt that kind of with Kilkenny. I wasn't around for like the Kerry drive for 5, but I was watching Kilkenny. We felt it that way, where it was like, oh, they didn't do it. Okay. It was a bit like, all right, fair enough. Well, let's talk actually about Kilkenny tips. Since we're pretty much talking about it, what were your own thoughts on the hurling and the finish of the season? Like, for me, it was like, I love hurling. It's a great sport, much more entertaining than Gaelic football, but I don't feel that we learned much from this season. Like, and I know it's too simplistic to say that the sending off in the final swung it for Tipperary, but like, they were the better side, they deserved it, but I don't know, did you just feel that it was really lackluster to have the losing Leinster and Munster finalists in the final and then to have the final go down that way? For such a competitive season, I felt a bit flat in the final. I don't know, was I wrong, or how did you feel?
Look, I mean, you talk about how Dublin Kerry has to be in the final to close out this historic drive. To close out the decade, the final kind of had to be Kilkenny and Tipperary. Once Kilkenny got through against Limerick, against Limerick, the day after Tipperary, actually, it had to be Tipperary. Because you talk about a drive for 5, starting this decade, 2010, All Ireland final, Kilkenny were going for it. Who stopped them in dominant fashion? Tipperary. Couple more finals in the decade between that, just like Dublin and Kerry, and now you're finishing off the decade with the same one. Listen, the red card, like, I will hear no argument that it wasn't a red card. You cannot elbow someone in the head in this day and age with what we know about concussions, etc. And it's funny, it does seem to be only Kilkenny people who are saying that it was his shoulder and it wasn't a red card. And you're like, I thought it was embarrassing how some of the pundits reacted, and it was that Kilkenny team of the noughties that ruined my childhood on a number of occasions as a Cork hurling fan. The likes of Shefflin, Jackie Tyrrell, Richie Power himself was coming out, and Richie Hogan. You're like, lads, stop, it's over. Listen, Tipperary, probably the best team. Do you know what? The best team in the championship this year, bar one game against Limerick in the Munster final. Their forwards in particular were insane. They started off the year by scoring 224 against Cork from play, which is monstrous for any. Like, if you're putting up 224 as a team, that's incredible. If you're putting up as 3 forwards, unbelievable. Yeah. Coming the way through, got to the Munster final, had a blip, bounced back in the quarters against Laois, and then just kind of rolled their way through it then. And it's the beauty of the hurling champ. I think the problem this year was that the quality set last year with the initial round robin and then Limerick winning kind of set the bar too high for this year. It wasn't as competitive as maybe some hoped it would have been. But like, it's the same. Like, next year, there's still 9 teams that can win it, and it'll be the same every year until one of them eventually drops off and another one replaces it, and then it's another 9 teams. So you'll never hear me as a hurling man complain about a hurling championship at all.
No, that's fair enough. Like, I did enjoy it. Like, but again, it was just kind of like, you know, I was just a bit more. And when you put it that way, I get it a bit more. It's like the end of the decade, you know, Cody Sheedy, it had to be this way. Yeah, of course. Let's finish the way we started. You know what I mean? And it's always great to look forward to. But at the same time, it was just like, for me, I just felt like it was Limerick and Wexford's year. I felt like they were, for me, the best 2 teams in the championship throughout the season. Like, and not only the best 2 teams, but the best 2 stories. Like, for me, Limerick were slightly, I don't know, maybe it was just a better narrative than Tipperary, because like they started slow, but then like they had momentum building up to that, and then it just was like it all fell apart in the first 20 minutes against Kilkenny, and then it was like, oh, Kilkenny are back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then like that, maybe that's just why I was here for a Limerick Wexford final because I'm like, yeah, let's do something new. And instead we went completely the opposite way and like, no, let's do exactly what we always do. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like trying to decide what nightclub to go to. You know what I mean? Or where to go out for pints. And it's like, will we go to that new fancy place over there? We want to try something new. And it's like, no, let's just go to local. You know what I mean? It's like, I like the local. It's great. I go there regularly for a reason. But like, I was kind of just, this 1 year, I wanted to change. I wanted to change the city. That's just for me. That's just me, maybe.
Yeah, look, I mean, the problem with Limerick this year was that they weren't the underdogs anymore. And that passed over to Wexford, and that passed over to Davy Fitz, who is king of the underdogs. And listen, they were a few pucks of a ball away if they had just held their nerve in the last 10 minutes against 14 men. Maybe that's just an experience where Limerick last year were in the opposite in their semi-final. I don't know if you remember against Cork, they were 8 or 9 points down coming into the last 10 minutes, and they held on. They battled on and they kept in it, and then they eventually got extra time and got through. So maybe it's just a lack of experience from Wexford. Limerick, worst thing that could have happened to them was winning Munster. If they had just come through the round robin, come through in third, got through to the quarters and just rolled their way like Tipperary did, you would have been talking about Limerick as an All-Ireland champions because I feel they would have beaten Kilkenny in a final at least because they would have had momentum, whereas semi, they hadn't played a game in 3 weeks, Kilkenny, and obviously come through a quarter against Cork, so they had momentum on their side as well. And like going in as the Kilkenny, Brian Cody, Kilkenny going in as the underdogs, unbelievable to think about, but it's where he works best. It's how he won the All-Ireland against Galway in 2015 because they crashed out the year before against Cork and Thurles in the qualifiers, and I was like, geez, it's the end of Kilkenny. And that's what people were saying last year as well, and even in the league this year. Geez, they lost 3 or 4 games. This is the end of Kilkenny. What will happen in the championship? They get to an All-Ireland final. It's how they work it. Limerick more comfortable. Could see them again next year. Could see the rise at Galway. Could see Wexford with Davy Fitz. Could see Cork. Could see Clare. Could see Tipperary. Could see Dublin. Can't wait. I just love the hurling, and I love the hurling championship for that reason.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. No, you can't go wrong with the hurling championship. And even if you are to like kind of go like kind of pick nits, then like that's exactly what you're doing. You're nitpicking because it was fantastic entertainment and fantastic theatre as well. Like if you got a more competitive final, that's the only thing we could have asked for really. But no, I am nitpicking a little bit. So let's move on anyway to what I want to talk. I want to talk about NFL. NFL is back next week. The fantasy, more important than any of that, the fantasy leagues are back and the drafts are talk. So I want to do a bit of fantasy football talk. Like, so we're looking at this and like there's like a crew. So first off, it's a bit like when you're doing your draft, I always say don't draft quarterback first. It's your temptation because it's the most important position in all of sport. It's the most important player in the NFL. And it's strange to people coming into fantasy football why it's like, why wouldn't you go for that? And they get you the most points throughout the season. That should be your number one pick. The reason is there's so many good quarterbacks out there that really the league is won by picking a running back or wide receiver first. So if you're doing your draft next week, quarterback, don't pick them number one. There's no argument for any of them, okay? There are some great quarterbacks that maybe you should think about picking early in the round, but there's no argument for any of them. You're looking at running back or you're looking at a stud wide receiver. But so what I want to talk about like is in terms of like without obviously we're competing in the league and we've got drawn together in the group of death of the Lowe's Bowl. Me, you, and Jimmy, and then Keith Edwards in his first fantasy league. So he's a bit of a wild card as well. Like it's an absolute group of death in the Lowe's Bowl, which is always like last year is one of the best fantasy leagues I ever played in. Like for example, Corporate Keane drafted like this is just an epic story that bears repeating, and we probably told this story before, but drafted like only players that like had the name of wrestlers. Like he went with all Hogan's like in his draft and was terrible, lost his first 6 games. You had Daz 1889, we spoke about him there, who was undefeated like for the first like nearly half of the season, and he was like just being a cocky little shit on Twitter, like talking about how he was invincible. And he's facing Corporate Keane.
You wouldn't know all about that, Rick, would you?
he's facing Corporate Keane, shit talking, acting like it's a gimme. Keane's team of total nobodies just had a miracle week. And stuff like that just kept happening last year. It's one of the best leagues. It's the best league I've ever been in. And this year looks no different. So without kind of giving away your own full strategy, like what's your general outline for this season? You have like Saquon and you have Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, David Johnson. They're kind of the big four in running backs. But are you looking at running back first, or are you looking at wide receiver? What way are you kind of approaching this draft?
I always go running back first because it's the one that gets the most points just based off yardage. And then long term, what I'll try and do, and again, it might be a draft strategy, but you may have noticed it yourself in the last couple of years, is I'll try and get the quarterback of the running back that I've just drafted. So, for example, last year, I drafted Alvin Kamara in the first round, and then later on in the draft, I made sure that I had Drew Brees as my quarterback. I think that's a nice axis to have, because if the running back isn't getting points, then it's a passing touchdown, and the yards are going to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting.
I'll look for a wide receiver. It won't destabilize me if I don't get one from that team. I'll just look somewhere else. I always like to try and get a rookie or two as well, just to have there, because there is always one or two breakouts, and it is impossible to predict at the start of the year who it's going to be. So I'll try and get one of them. But yeah, it is running back. I'll wait till maybe 3 or 4, possibly even 5 or 6 for a quarterback. I'll just sort me running back, sort 2 wide receivers, and then work off that. Tight ends as well, and I always get really anxious about tight ends because I'm like, oh, this guy might be here in the later rounds, but he might not. Do I take him now? Like, that's the whole basis of the draft itself. But yeah, the whole thing is running back first, and then try and get that axis.
It's an interesting one. I haven't heard that strategy before. It does make sense, but like also as well, the risk there is that, you know what I mean. You're like, if the team has a shit week, or if they come up against the Chicago Bears, the best defense in the league, then you're fucked completely because it's like,
that's why I have other running backs.
But no, I do get it. It's an interesting one. I like the thought process. For me, the past couple of years, I've gone wide receivers in the first 2 rounds, because for me, the thing is with running backs is they always get injured. They always get injured, and it's just the nature of the game. Their game is to try sprint through extremely large men on defense. And like that tends to be like, you know, there's a limited shelf life on that. The average career span of an NFL running back, I think, is 2 years. For that exact reason. So the trick to running back is it's one on the waiver wire. It's one with the replacement that you're not kind of looking at, and like that just breaks out in the middle of the season. Like I've a long history of this. No, Sean Moreno, years back for the Denver Broncos, was a big guy for me. Who else I have? Shane Vereen for the New England Patriots had a couple of big years for me. Devontae Freeman before he was cool. I'm being a Devontae Freeman hipster here, but like, those kind of guys are my guys. Sonny Michel last year did it for me as well, and ended up being the only touchdown scorer in the Super Bowl. So I really felt vindicated with that. So there's value to be had on the waiver wire for running backs. For me though, like if you're looking at those 4 running backs, you're thinking about Ezekiel Elliott. Now the problem with Ezekiel Elliott is he's in a contract holdout with the Dallas Cowboys. But the problem is, so we had Jimmy Malloy get onto us earlier on, who has Zeke as his keeper in the league. A keeper, for anyone who doesn't know, is like you get to keep one player from, in this particular league, you get to keep one player from your team from the last season. So now you don't have to, and that's your first round pick. You don't have to, but you can. And it means that if you've an absolute stud, no one else can get their hands on them. So that's just worth keeping in mind as well. Jimmy got onto us though, and he has Ezekiel Elliott, who's in a contract holdout with the Dallas Cowboys. And we saw Le'Veon Bell just sat out all of last season because like the Pittsburgh Steelers wouldn't pay him, so he just sat at home. He did a Stone Cold Steve Austin, taking his ball and going home deal. So that's a risk with Ezekiel Elliott. So Jimmy got on and asked us, in the Lowe's Bowl I have Zeke, but with the difficulty of my division, which is us in it as well, I think I can't afford to carry his holdout. His old keepers are Kittle, Mahomes, Mike Evans, or Adam Thielen. Would you keep or go alternate? Where would you look at that?
In that group, yes, it is difficult. I'm not going to blow our own horns here, but there are easier opponents he could have had in that group. So we don't know if Zeke will play any minutes. He may settle it tomorrow morning. He may settle it in the next hour or so when we may look like fools. But the way it went last year with this kind of contract dispute, even with other players, you mentioned it, is that it didn't really work out. So does he put his keeper onto someone like Adam Thielen, who's set for a big year with the Vikings? Mahomes, obviously, can he repeat a breakout? We'll have to wait and see. If I were him and I were in a league with me, then I just keep him. Yeah, just start him every game. But then if he pays up, his head frame won't be in the right. If he gets his money, his head space won't be in the right thing. So maybe just put him on the waiver. You don't want an unhappy man running. He might run backwards for all you know. Just stick him on the waiver. Get in, I don't know, Jamal Williams. He'll be all right, and work your way from there.
You have for me, I was talking to Jimmy about this earlier, and I've kind of moved on from what I was saying earlier on. For me, now my latest stance on this is let him go, and if he's available in the first round. Still, when it's your turn to draft, take him again. But see what's available in the first round otherwise. See who people use as their keepers and then kind of go about it that way. I think Zeke is going to get paid. Jerry Jones is nothing if not ridiculously loyal. Look how many years Tony Romo got shit at the Cowboys and was still the starting quarterback until Dak Prescott came along and took his spot. Jason Garrett is still the coach at the Cowboys. Jerry Jones looks after his own. And yes, this is a tough contract negotiation, but I think he's going to look after Zeke here. He knows that's how his bread is buttered, and that's going to be how the Cowboys compete this year. So that's the way I go with it. In terms of other positions, Patrick Mahomes, Jimmy in the Dynasty League, which is where the first year we've run it and it's for the top 8 in the Lowe's Bowl last year, and we've got promotion and relegation that's tied to the main Lowe's Bowl league as well, so it's pretty cool. But the Dynasty League is where you pick a squad and you keep them from year after year. So your players, they're your guys. It's like a real team now. They're your guys for years now if you want them to be. Now you can cut players and whatnot, but anyway. Jimmy in the second round took Patrick Mahomes, which is controversial because that's very low to take a quarterback, but it makes sense in a league where you're drafting these players for years to draft the best quarterback, maybe the new Tom Brady. I don't hate that move. But Patrick Mahomes is possibly the only quarterback you should flirt with picking in the early rounds. Where would be the earliest you'd look at with Mahomes?
Even in the chat during the Dynasty draft, as soon as Jimmy picked him, there was 2 or 3 messages just, it was that kind of move where you're like, it is a big risk because can he repeat that year? People will be smarter to him now that have seen a lot more tape. He didn't have any NFL tape coming into last season because he come from the draft, obviously. So there wasn't that much. It was college, all right, but it's always different in the NFL. Will he? I wouldn't have gone that early with him myself. Like I said, I'll usually wait till 4, 5, 6 for a quarterback. But listen, if it's for the next 5 years, it could turn out to be a brilliant investment. I can't really speak from my perch when I've got Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, 2 other young supposed superstars that I can wait. Exactly. Well, listen, it's for the next few years. If I'm in that league next year, I think I'll be doing all right. I can't go with Drew Brees in a dynasty league. No. So Mahomes, second round, ballsy. If he's there, weigh up the options, weigh up your risk, see what else is around. If you want to get him. He's still going to be a pretty good quarterback. I just don't know if he's going to be the elite one that he was last year.
With quarterbacks and drafts, always let someone else blink first, all right? Because the thing is, someone is going to take Patrick Mahomes in the first 4 rounds of a draft. And I'm not even thinking of him unless I'm the 16th pick and it's the 4th round. And I'm like, he's still here? Then I'll think about him. And even then, I'm only thinking about him. I'm not saying I'm taking him. But someone will always overplay their hand with a quarterback like Mahomes. Let them. Get value elsewhere. You can make up your value. Here's the thing. Here's why quarterbacks aren't that valuable in drafts. Because there are always 10 or 11 quarterbacks every week who score 15 to 20 points. So you're going to get those points regardless of someone. And you can get other players on your team who, in wide receivers or tight ends, for example. A tight end who'll score 15 points a week is super valuable because that gives you an edge over everyone else. So that's where, like, you've got to look at it and build up your value elsewhere. And you can, like, there are quarterbacks like Carson Wentz. I couldn't believe Kirk Cousins was the last pick. I was the 8th pick. I was the last pick in our dynasty league. And Kirk Cousins was the last pick that I had, and I could not believe it. That is an absolute bargain. Kirk Cousins is a fantasy monster. So like, he's someone that I'm looking at in non-dynasty leagues and just in season-by-season leagues. Look at the weapons he has. Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, he's amazing. Like, so you can get your value from guys like that. Josh Allen was the best quarterback for the Buffalo Bills in fantasy football in the last 6 weeks of last season. That just tells you right there what you're looking for. Jameis Winston is an absolute fantasy monster when he's on the field. The only problem is he has injury and he has like personal issues and stuff in the past that's kept him off the field. But when he's on the field, he's a monster. You can make up your points that way. Let someone else overpay for Mahomes. And if he's around in the 5th or 6th league and everyone's taking that in the 5th or 6th round and everyone's taking that strategy, fucking take him then. But like, someone will take him in the 2nd or 3rd. For me, you don't want to be that guy. I get it in a dynasty league because I do think that like he's got every reason to repeat. I don't think we've got much cause to worry from what he showed, but it's just a case of you have to weigh it up, and it's that's kind of the skill of drafting and weighing up, like balancing it out and kind of trying to get the most value for your overall team rather than getting the big names. But also in fantasy, it's important to have studs because the guys with the studs generally win it all at the end. So you have to get that balance right. Talking about wide receivers though, the big kind of news this year were the wide receiver free agent moves. So you had Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns, Antonio Brown to the Raiders. OBJ, he was my first round pick in the Lowe's Bowl Dynasty League. I think he's got a lot to like in Cleveland. He's got Baker Mayfield, a young, exciting quarterback, another guy who, you can get value out of this year, or another guy that people could overpay for in your particular league. It'll either go one way or the other. But Baker Mayfield, he's got him throwing to him. He's got Jarvis Landry at his side. He's got Nick Chubb, who's a stud running back as well. So he's going to take attention away in the way that Todd Gurley did for the Rams last year when they got to the Super Bowl. Like, you always had to take Todd Gurley into account, even if it was a passing play, because he can catch balls as well. So Nick Chubb is going to be an asset there. So he's going to get a lot of space. He's going to get a lot of looks. He's one of the most naturally talented wide receivers, I think, ever to play the game. There's a lot to like about him, but are people almost overrating him because they're getting so excited about the Browns now?
No, I think that's always been kind of the OBJ way, in the sense that the 5 or 6 incredible catches that he makes every year and some solid receiving yards in total. Like, I think he enjoys that hype. He lives for that kind of stuff, whereas he loves to be the superstar. And like, of all quarterbacks to want when you've got an attitude like that, Baker Mayfield, perfect. And a team like the Browns, who I think we'll get onto in a minute anyway in the division when we talk divisions, like they're most likely set for a huge year based off what. Okay, like this could come back to bite us in the arse in 6 weeks, but like it does look like they're in for a massive year, and led by OBJ with Mayfield thrown to him under center, could easily be like he's an excellent player. He's a phenomenal talent. He can go at angles that most people can't. He can even throw a ball or two as well on trick plays. We've seen that before, and same with Jarvis Landry for that matter. So I think OBJ likes being that guy. I think it suits him down to the ground. We've seen him have tantrums as well when it's not really going his way, as most superstars do eventually. So I think he's perfectly right. And like at the Browns, yeah, people are getting on the hype, but that's how OBJ likes it, I'd say. Like,
but then like use that same logic of a phenomenally like talented wide receiver going to a new place. So obviously he's going to do well because talent takes over. Why aren't we excited about Antonio Brown with the Raiders then?
Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe it's just because it's the Raiders. I don't know. They're not really the in team as opposed to the Browns, where everyone's got this story from 0 and 16 2 years ago, or 1 and 15, whatever it was, to oh look, suddenly they're in contention for the division. Look at the turnaround. Whereas the Raiders, not even their own fans are behind them because of the relocation to Vegas coming next year. Maybe they're not as attractive a story. Look, Brown, again, as you mentioned, one of the top receivers in the league. Is it like, could it be the same? Who's the Raiders got a quarterback again?
Derek
They
Carr.
trade. No, is it still Derek Carr?
Derek Carr,
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Maybe not as exciting as Mayfield. Not as young. Been around a little bit. Still coming back from that injury, a broken leg towards the end of 2 seasons ago. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that it's the Raiders as opposed to the nice and exciting Browns. Listen, are people talking about the Raiders as division hopefuls? Probably not. Is that fair? Probably.
I want to talk about the Raiders a bit more in the divisional things because I'm watching Hard Knocks and I got some thoughts. So I want to talk about them a bit more, but we'll talk about more of the team. Lastly, in our fantasy football talk, I want to talk about tight ends because you're talking. There's 3 big guns when it comes to tight ends now, especially in a post-Gronk universe. Now that he's retired from the NFL, you're looking at Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Zach Ertz. Here's how do you weigh this up? Are these bona fide first or second round picks, or is this another case of how do you weigh up your tight ends? Are you looking at them as you can get value elsewhere on the chart, but use your first and second round picks for a running back or wide receiver, or where are you looking on this? Not without trying to tip your hand. I know you want to keep your strategy without announcing it to the world, but how are you generally weighing up the monster tight ends? Because there's a big drop off, or is there someone that we're missing that's in the middle ground?
Yeah, with my advice there would just be don't blow your load. As I say, top three, you're kind of looking at it and you're going, yeah, these they will be targeted by their quarterbacks, they will get the yards, but I think there's more kind of hidden around in the middle ground. Obviously not to the elite level of the 3 we've mentioned, Kelce, Kittle, and Ertz, but Evan Engram, Hunter Henry, they're still targets. They'll still get balls, and they're still they could even get scores. And as you mentioned at the start, we were talking about the quarterbacks, tight ends could easily put up 15, 20 points in the game when you're not expecting them to, and then suddenly that could be the edge. So listen, Kelce, Ertz, unbelievable, as you say, will get the ball, will get yards, will get points, but that's not saying that others won't. And there could be someone hidden away, down in one of the lower teams that you're oh, listen, they might not go anywhere overall, but their tight end could, and that's it is another risk you have to take. Do you wait? My strategy really would be don't go too early on a tight end unless you really, really want it.
For me, Travis Kelce, second round. The other 2, third round, if you're really happy with your first 2 round picks. For me in the Dynasty League, for example, my first 2 round picks were David Johnson and Odell Beckham. So I'm right, I am set for studs at running back and wide receiver. I can risk Zach Ertz. Now, I'm an Eagles fan, so I just wanted to have Zach Ertz too, and I wanted to enjoy watching him and be able to cheer him on from a fantasy standpoint as well. Of Ertz, of Wentz, of Miles Williams as well, and I have I have Alshon Jeffrey. So I have an Eagles nucleus, and of course, my favorite kicker in the league, Jake Elliott. My favorite kicker in NFL history, Jake Elliott. So I have an Eagles nucleus. So part of that is bias, but if you're really happy, you can look at them. Kelce in the second round, if you're set with your strategy, the others in the third round if you're happy. But for me, there's you mentioned Engram there. He's someone I'm looking at. A lot of people picking Jared Cook as well because he's gone to I think the Saints now, and he has Drew Brees, and Drew Brees makes stars. I'm not as hot. I've had too many false dawns where I'm Jared Cook is the guy. This is where he's going to break out, and it just never happens. So I'm not going for him. Vance McDonald of the Pittsburgh Steelers is someone that I'm looking at. Okay, you watch him play and he passed the eye test. Now, the only reason he hasn't been a beast so far for me is because he's in a timeshare and he kind of does a blocking tight end. When he's had other people Jesse James has been with the Steelers in recent years. like Vance McDonald is one of these big fucking buff, like monster athlete tight ends as well, who kind of is used as a blocker a lot. But when you see him get to catch the ball, like when he's got more kind of targets thrown his way, you see that he could be a Travis Kelce type. He has like you see it in him, like in those kind of that modern kind of basketballer who on fucking steroids, not really, but like that kind of look, that monster basketballer, athletic big guy kind of look that has modernized the tight end position with Gronk and Jimmy Graham in recent years kind of setting the tone. He has all of that, and now he's in a situation in Pittsburgh where Antonio Brown is gone. He is the main tight end. He's going to see a lot of targets. Juju Smith-Schuster now, who is also like a bona fide for me first or second round pick with Antonio Brown gone. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to draw a lot of attention though. So Vance McDonald is going to get a lot of free space. He's going to get a lot of time. And I think he could be a potential Travis Kelce. He could have a breakout season this year. So he's someone that if you don't get one of those three, I'd be looking at him too. And I'm raging that I've said this now on a podcast because everyone's going to go for him. He's going to go in like the 4th round on Monday. Wait, watch and see. That's fantasy football. I do want to fly through the divisions because like I'm not going to go for my bet now, but I covered this last year when we were doing our big NFL preview. One of my favorite bets of the year is picking the winners of the 8 divisions. And like, I'll usually get, I think I got like 5 or 6 right last year and putting them into an account. Yeah. And like, it's something that's a decent shout, but I do want to look at the divisions and the main kind of storylines, heading into the divisions. For example, and we'll fly through these like bit by bit, okay? Starting with the AFC East, right? Do you think the Pats can adjust post Gronk, or is this the year? There's more and more rumors of a rift between Brady and Belichick, but every time we hear those rumors, every time we question if it's the end of the Patriots, they seem to come back stronger and win the Super Bowl. The Patriots thrive. The Patriots only ever struggle when they're the favorites. Now with Gronk on and everyone saying, oh, I don't know about this. It's only Brady and Edelman left, and can you trust Josh Gordon? Is Sonny Michel going to do it again, or is he injury prone? James White, people are going to know to watch out for him. Brady's over the hill. That tends to be when the Patriots go out and win the fucking Super Bowl. But do you think that like it's going to happen some year? And we say it every year, but it is going to happen some year. Father Time is going to catch up with Tom Brady one day. Is this the day?
No. Not in the division anyway. Listen, there was four games between them, I think, in terms of winning, in terms of record last year between the Patriots and wasn't the Jets that came second maybe with Darnold, or wasn't the Bills? I can't remember, one or the other. There hasn't been that much of a gap. Gronk is, yes, a huge loss, but he's not that much of a loss. So I think the Patriots win the division comfortably. Be interested to see, in terms of like, there has been a couple of nice additions for particularly the Bills as well. I got like Cole Beasley in from Dallas, which is a great sign. Frank Gore, experience at running back. Like, he'll only help Christian Wade if he gets brought in the 53-man roster. Yes, I'm on the Wade hype train like I was on the Jared Hine hype train 3 seasons ago. And that went spectacularly for me. But like, there is a couple. Sam Darnold is coming into is it his 3rd year now, or is it his 2nd year for Darnold?
His 2nd year, I think.
Yeah, like he's gonna have a bit of wherewithal about him as well. The Jets might have a bit more. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell is a Jet now, isn't he? So, like, there is a bit more interest in the ACs, but can't see it being this year. Maybe next year for the actual turn of the turnover to happen, but I still think Patriots have it this year.
I like the Jets. I'm not saying I like them to win the division. I think the Pats are going to lock down that division and own it like they've owned it like for the past generation of NFL. I like the Jets, though. I like the Jets to push for a wildcard position. I thought Adam Gase was very hard done by getting booted unceremoniously out of Miami when he did a lot of good work there. And he's going to have a point to prove in that very division with the Jets. It's a bit of an awkward fit because he's not a very high-volume running guy. Like, think of who would have breakout Miami kind of running backs underneath him. Jay Ajayi is the only one you can think of, and even then that was kind of an accident because they needed a guy and they needed to to switch strategy mid-season, and Jay Ajayi just happened to be that guy who broke out for a few weeks. So Le'Veon Bell, I don't think is going to... I'm not saying he's going to be the reason that they're different, but I think Darnold under a new coach, they just seem like a team that are settling and could kind of take everyone by surprise in the way maybe the Oakland Raiders did a couple of years ago in Derek Carr's first season. So I think the Jets are good for a wildcard spot. No, I think Brady's got this locked up. Let's look at the AFC North. Everyone's looking at Cleveland. Everyone's talking about Cleveland. We talked about them already. They do have a lot to like there. But we haven't seen Cleveland do it. We're just speculating based on their summer signings. And is this a bit of a situation where they're going to flatter to deceive? Because that isn't a traditional kind of path to victory. Usually squads are molded and built over years, and then they just find themselves in a position where maybe one free agent just comes in, rather than just parachuting all these names in as they are and kind of going all in on one season. We don't really have a format for that. Do you think maybe Cleveland are kind of a bit overhyped because of OBJ and Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield, or do you think these are legitimate Super Bowl contenders?
I would lean more towards the former than the latter there. I wouldn't have them anywhere near the Super Bowl. Maybe the playoffs at a push, but I do think there is a case of everyone getting onto the bandwagon and getting onto the hype train. This was a team who 2 or 3 years ago was not for 16, 1 for 15 the year before. They haven't, yes, they've made some excellent draft picks. They made some excellent trades. They've got Baker Mayfield, a young quarterback, exciting quarterback, charismatic as well, so he's able to attract even the media. But they're still, have they won a division? I think it's really earlier since the 1980s, 1960s perhaps. They haven't won an AFC North title then. It is still the Steelers to lose for me. The Ravens are going to be an interesting one to watch as well. Maybe defense could be the worry, but it's open. I think Brown's good for a playoff spot, maybe a wild card spot. But they could easily come out and go 12-4 as well. So I don't know. It's one of the harder ones to predict the winner in terms of top two. We'll get on to more of them in a minute, though. But it might be the most fun one to watch as well.
Because the division is so competitive, I'm going to only pick the Browns for 11-5. They're winning this division. I think this is going to work. I believe in the Cleveland project. I do think they're overhyped. I think, the playoffs, let's talk about that then. Because that's a whole different beast. And we've seen teams come into the playoffs and have these amazing things, but then they look terribly ordinary because they run into Tom Brady or someone just sizzle and experience. Look at the Chiefs last year. I know they pushed the Pats all the way, but just that bit of experience. Brady throwing the Gronk in the depths of overtime, we kind of always knew it was going to go that way at the end of the day. And I think that, I don't see them for the Super Bowl, but I think they're winning this division. They have more than enough talent. They've got determination. They're ready. And here's the thing. We kind of have seen them a little bit last season. We saw the same with San Francisco at the end of the season before last, where we're Jimmy G came in and won 6 games in a row. And we're oh my God, they're going to go 16-0 the next year. And Jimmy G went down in the second game. So it's not a guarantee either. But I think things are clicking there. And an NFL season where it's 16 games, you just need to click for a temporary period of time. If it was a Premier League season over 38 games where you play every team twice, home and away and all that, different story. 16 games, you just need to click for a short period of time. You need to get in a roll. And I think the Browns have that belief and they've the talent to back up the belief. They've got the system, the infrastructure. I think the Browns are going to do well, and I think they're a team to beat. I think rumors of Pittsburgh's demise are greatly exaggerated. I think there's still a lot to like there with them. I think they're going to compete. I think it's going to be Pittsburgh and the Ravens. They're going to be competing for a wild card again. I think, Smith-Schuster, I do like him as a first or second round pick, but at the same time, he's going to get, he is going to be the focal point for every defense. He's going to be going into a lot of double coverages, so he's going to find it hard to kind of get the volume of targets and catches the way that you'd kind of want him to, and maybe his talent would belie, because a lot of his numbers and stats that were put up were because Antonio Brown was taking the attention away from him, and people were paying attention to him, and Juju Smith-Schuster was getting a bit of leeway. Now he's not going to get that. But I do like the Steelers. I do think it's going to be more competitive, but I think this is the Browns all the way. In the AFC South, well,
Well,
This whole dynamic changed just a week ago. We opened Low Blows this week with it, where we talked about Andrew Luck retiring from the game just a couple of weeks before the season, completely healthy, getting ready. The Colts, with luck, you'd say they could make a run at the Super Bowl. They could be a team who, like, it all clicks together at the right time. Now Jacoby Brissett is the starting quarterback. Andrew Luck is never going to play the game again by the looks of things. But now,
get out.
Where's this going?
I haven't missed them.
Where's this going? Is this the Texans to lose? They were very impressive last year. Deshaun Watson, a transcendent quarterback. Or you have the Tennessee Titans, who refuse to go away, who refuse to be ignored. Playoffs past 2 years and competing and thereabouts. Jacksonville Jaguars as well. We don't know what to do. The Blake Bortles era is over there. Nick Foles, Super Bowl winning quarterback. The Eagles playoff god. Who do you think is going to benefit from this, or do you think Jacoby Brissett could surprise a lot of people?
Listen, Jacoby Brissett is still a solid NFL quarterback. He's been around a long time. Is he Andrew Luck? No, unfortunately, for Colts fans. But look, he's learned from Luck and Tom Brady. Let's not forget that. So he's got his wherewithal about him. And like the Colts they've added a couple as well. I think Justin Houston came from Kansas as well. So that's a pass rush, like that's a weapon there. Like, look, it hasn't left it too late. Could that change? Like, it's going to be a tight division anyway. Even with Luck, it would have been a dogfight in there. So without him, I don't know about the Colts. Listen, I like Jacoby Brissett. I just don't know. Like, he's just not Andrew Luck. He's I think people writing off the Colts as, oh God, this is the end of it now, are reacting poorly and overreacting. Jaguars, I mean, Big Dick Nick, Philly, Jackie doesn't really work too well, but still got Jalen Ramsey, and then like the Texans, DeAndre Hopkins, arguably the best wide receiver in the league still. Deshaun Watson, great young quarterback. It's gonna be tight. Like the Titans as well. I haven't even mentioned them. Like I don't really fancy them much, but then again, no one ever really fancied them, and they still end up in the playoffs at the end of it. So. Like it's another one. Like there's so many of these this year. We'll get on to more of them in a minute. There's so many of these that you're like, could be, and it could it's just going to be mental to watch on Red Zone. I can't wait.
I haven't had enough time to kind of digest the Andrew Luck news and kind of look at the landscape of this division and completely reevaluate. I don't hate the Jags. I don't hate them. Let's not forget, 2 years ago we're in the AFC Championship game, and they nearly won that game. They nearly knocked off Tom Brady in a game that could have been the end of Tom Brady right there and then had Blake Bortles out-Bortled them. And it just went a different way just because they did rely too much. They went all in on Blake, and it turns out he was just a kind of one-and-done guy in terms of that run. He was a bit of a Tim Tebow, where it was lightning in a bottle for a few weeks and then it's just gone. Nick Foles, you could say, you know, if you were being harsh on him, you could say there's similarities there too, where he turns up for the big games, but also can be a very ordinary quarterback. They have a lot of the nucleus that were still in the AFC Championship game. Defense, you know what I mean? There's, you know, they got a lot of luck the first year that they were there, like that they were in the AFC Championship game. A lot of things that, you know, like fumble returns and stuff like that tend to be 50-50. They got and one-score games, things that just tended, like, the ball just bounced their way, and then it bounced the other way last season, but they still have a talented side, so they're going to bounce back. I'm not saying they're going to win it. I don't know. You would bet on the Texans last year based on what we saw. You know what I mean? They're obviously, like, making some adjustments now that Lamar Miller's gone out for the season, so they don't have a number one running back that they were planning to start the season with, but Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, on the other side of the ball, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney. There's a lot to like there, and I think it's theirs to lose, but I'm going to need a few more days with it. I'm going to put my bet online. I'm going to put my act online, and you'll know which way I swung there. Again, yeah, like you said, we're forgetting the Titans, and that's proven to be a mistake in recent years. It's just hard to get excited about Marcus Mariota and a lot of what they have there. And Hunter Henry as well.
Like, terrible movie.
He had a great season.
Forgetting the Titans. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, the much less heralded sequel. Let's talk about the AFC West. Have you been watching any Hard Knocks so far?
No, I haven't had the time. I'm really sick because it sounds fantastic this year.
It's exactly what you want from Hard Knocks. You want a hot mess of a team. You want a reality TV show. And, like, it succeeds. You always are more invested in the team that you're following because you can't not be. You're in their camp for the few weeks leading up to it, and they've got a great story because it's covering the Antonio Brown, his weird fucking foot injury that he had where he was frostbit, like, because he was training in fucking Iceland or whatever he was doing. And then you have the helmet issue. I'm on episode 3 now. I'm probably going to watch it when we finish taping here. And they're only kind of getting into the helmet issue as well, so they're covering that. John Gruden is a fucking dickhead, man. And
yeah,
he is an asshole. Like, when you watch him in training, he's just a bully. He's every fucking shitty PE teacher, like, fucking stereotype that you see in American sports movies. You know what I mean? The guy who just shouts and bullies his team. Like, even with Nate Peterman, the backup quarterback, who you may remember as the guy who threw like 5 interceptions and a half for the Bills a couple of years ago. So obviously a guy short on confidence and a very introverted, quiet guy. And Gruden's just there shouting at him in front of the team like, speak the fuck up! Speak the fuck up! Tell them what to do! And then, like, it's like, that's not how you motivate introverts. Like, I know more about fucking man management than you do. They are a hot mess. So they're not someone to factor in the division, but it's fantastic watching. And I suggest you get on it. If you have Sky Sports, then you can get it on the on-demand feature and you can watch all the episodes. So it's well worth keeping an eye out for. Get you proper hyped. That and Ballers being back has got me in full NFL mode. And now, of course, it's fantasy draft season as well, too. So all of that, it's great kind of preamble to the season. In terms of the division, though, the Chiefs are the ones to watch here, okay? They're bringing back a lot of their nucleus. They have Damian Williams in as the new running back, replacing Spencer Ware and Kareem Hunt, of course, last season unceremoniously dumped after his scandal. But they have Tyreek Hill back in. They're bringing back a lot of the nucleus of the team that was successful last year. Andy Reid, of course, a very competent regular season and consistent regular season coach. He's always successful, always has hot offenses that, like, with great passing quarterbacks and great running games. Defenses hit and miss, but they've improved a lot on that side of the ball. Do you see the Chiefs repeating, or do you think they could be like the Panthers or the Cardinals a few years ago, where it was like lightning in a bottle for one season, and then you were talking earlier about teams will have a lot more copy on Mahomes. Do you think they could struggle a bit more, and that maybe it won't be just a saunter back to the Super Bowl or back to the championship game? How are you weighing up the Chiefs?
No, I still think they're going places. I still think they'll win this division. The Chargers will put up a nice fight. We'll get to that in a minute, but like the Chiefs, as you mentioned, they've held on to a lot of it. They still Mahomes will have more tricks in his sleeve than we didn't see. Andy Reid will have more tricks in his sleeve as well. And like you mentioned, the defense as well, how they've improved on that. I think Chris Jones didn't he set a record last year for 10, 12 games in a row with a sack consecutively? It was some NFL record. A couple more than they've brought in as well. They've drafted a couple of young lads from young defensive stars too. So Mahomes will get protected a lot as well, even on the O-line. Tyrion Matthew was brought in, I think, as well at safety.
Yeah, big.
So that's unbelievable. That is an incredible signing to get for an already stacked defense. So there's no problem on that side of the ball. There's definitely no problem on the offensive side of the ball with Mahomes leading the way. So win the division. Maybe even win the championship. I don't know.
I think they're going to the Super Bowl. I think they're beating the Pats in the championship game. I think we're getting a rematch, and I think they're going to do it. New defensive coordinator. Last year, they had the most points per game in losing games in the Super Bowl era. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
But their offense was so good that they ended up still coming out with an incredible record. They Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, Juan Thornhill as well, and they've got a new defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo. So, like, there's a lot to like about the Chiefs. They've addressed their issues. I like them. I think they're going to the championship game. I think they're going to the Super Bowl. That's a really early pick, but I'm a big fan. The Rams, though, as we get on to the NFC West, are they going back to the Super Bowl? Many people say they didn't even deserve to be there. Now, the future Todd Gurley is up and down. He's not even someone we talked about. He is a person who decided leagues for the past 2 years in fantasy football, and now we didn't even mention him in our fantasy bit. Injuries starting to catch up with him. People saying he's on the decline. The Rams talking about they're drafting in quarterbacks to kind of help manage the load. Do you think that the Rams, they were a very one and done team under Sean McVay? They were all in and they kind of achieved their goal. Do you think that they're in line for a step back? But you also look at this division. If not them, then who?
Yeah, I mean, the betting odds would also suggest that the Rams are probably going, maybe not back to the Super Bowl, but the division to lose. I probably agree with it, but I don't think it's going to be as comfortable as people might think it will be. Seahawks, 49ers, Jimmy G again, Seahawks as well, and even Kyler Murray at the Cardinals. They all seem like they have something not to prove, but there's just stories coming out about all of them, and you're like, yeah, maybe they could do. Pete Carroll's a wily old fox. But Jared Goff, the Rams, I would subscribe to that narrative that they didn't deserve to get there, and there's been an NFL rule change to stop that ever happening again. Yeah. So, I don't know if it's going to be as impressive. I still think they'll win the division, maybe not as comfortably as people think, but I don't know if there's much of a challenge. Kyler Murray is the big hope, so maybe he could have a Mahomes here, or he could have a Sam Darnold first year, and it's just be right, we'll build to him. It is still the Cardinals, and it's not someone that you're going, right, they're going to the Super Bowl or they're going to the playoffs. Whereas Seahawks, maybe 49ers, maybe on a good day in a wild card, but yeah, Rams to win it.
I think the Cardinals are always there. I think I think the Seattle Seahawks are always there or thereabouts. Pete Carroll just has it. He gets it. Chris Carson, I like a lot of running back. Russell Wilson as well. He's just been there before and he knows how to do it. He's got a cool head. Even if the stats don't always show it, when the big games come and it's time for the step up, he can step up. The Seahawks always go under the radar. We always underrate them these days and they always end up competing. So they're ones not to rule out. But I like Kyler Murray a lot. I think we're going to get a Mahomes or Deshaun Watson type season out of when Deshaun Watson broke out. I think there's a lot to like there. I think a lot of good things are happening in the Cardinals, and I'm not going to necessarily say I'll bet on them. I need, again, a few more days to sit with that before the NFL season. But, they will be my outside shout for a team that's going to... And it happens every year. There's always at least one team who's like, how didn't we realize they were going to be good? The Cardinals have that kind of shine to me where they're just quietly going about their business and they seem to be working away. There's no scandals or anything breaking. There's no news. No news in the NFL is good news. It means your players aren't getting arrested for hitting women or failing drug tests or fucking doing crazy shit like some NFL players do. And they're just quietly going about their business. They're not offending anyone. They seem confident. I'm just saying the Cardinals might be worth watching out for. In the NFC East, all focus is on my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. And there's a lot to like. We've strengthened a lot. Carson Wentz is going to be back at quarterback. Nick Foles gone, but we've replaced Josh McCown, a perfectly serviceable backup in case we need him, because Carson Wentz does have a problem in finishing full seasons. We've made the last two playoffs, but we've had to play without a starting quarterback there. That's how Foles became a legend in Philly. Won a Super Bowl for us. But then there's a lot of reinforcements. Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders at running back. We have Darren Sproles returning, probably for his last season at running back. So we have a great option, and we have loads of, at any one stage, Doug Peterson likes to mix things up on offense. Keep it unpredictable. Be ballsy. Be brave. We have Deshaun Jackson back, an absolute legend. Wow, I'm so happy to see him back at the Eagles. Deshaun Jackson back. He's going to be competing for targets along with Alshon Jeffrey, and of course we've got Zach Gertz. And then we've got a lot of injury luck. Jason Peters returning from injury as well. So there's a lot to like about the Eagles. They are flying under the radar as possible Super Bowl contenders, at least in the NFC. But are we forgetting about others? Are we overlooking the Cowboys' new starting quarterback, and they have Gucci as well, a running back. Then we have the Giants. Well, whatever. And then you have the Cowboys. Though the Cowboys every year, since Dak and Zeke have taken over, the Cowboys have ended up being contenders in this division. So let's not forget that either, and let's not underrate them. They made the playoffs 2 years ago when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and were dominant and won the NFC. But the Cowboys still did well, and they pulled together towards the end of the season. Last season they clicked Amari Cooper, who's still going to be there. Zeke Elliott, I think he's coming back. I don't think the holdout's going to stick. So are we we're all looking at the Eagles. Are we disrespecting the Cowboys here? Or are we not paying any attention to the Giants? Like, again, Daniel James as well. Really impressive for the Giants at quarterback in preseason. If they get rid of Eli Manning, maybe there's a whole new world opening up, although they have a lot of injuries that are a factor there. The Washington Redskins, no one's talking about them. So should we be looking elsewhere and not just squarely at the Eagles here?
In terms of the Giants and the Redskins, like the Giants still have Saquon as well.
Exactly.
Could lead their team in pretty much everything, receiving, rushing, touchdowns, probably sacks at this stage. Like Washington as well, like they got Landon Collins from the Giants. That's a serious ad.
Mm-hmm.
So they're improving. I don't know if it's enough to maybe challenge for the division this year, but there's seeds being sown. Daniel James, like eventually Eli Manning will have to go on live on that farm with Peyton. Maybe not this year, maybe for the second half of this year. We might see a kind of Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson situation like we had in Baltimore. In terms of division win, I think the Eagles are just going to squeak it. Like some of the moves that Dallas have made, though. So even if Zeke does hold out and doesn't get paid, they've got Alfred Morris. That's a pretty solid backup.
Yeah.
Not to the level of Zeke, of course, but still, like if you're going for reliable, consistent running back, you got him. Randall Cobb from the Packers. I've talked about him a lot, and I don't think anyone needs to be clued in on what he can do. Leighton Van Der Esch is still a solid defensive star as well. So, like even if they get Zeke, you're talking playoffs. If they don't, they're still going to give it a good bash. I do think the Eagles win the division, though. I think Deshaun Jackson is an excellent recruit. You still have people like Jeffrey Ertz, Jordan Howard we talked about earlier, Fletcher Cox on the other side. Like I think the Eagles 11-5, maybe 12-4, win the division.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I think it is the Eagles to lose. I think we are going to have a bounce back season. I think last season, even when we struggled, I think we showed that like there's a lot to like about us, and like we showed heart. We showed that we are a quality team. We weren't just that team like the Panthers or the Giants or the Ravens who won a Super Bowl and then just like kind of chilled out and peaced out. Doug Peterson is a quality coach. He is perhaps the next Bill Belichick. He is the next line for me. Him and Sean McVay are competing for that title. He is the next in line. So I think we're going to compete this year. We'll discuss that more as we go on the podcast because that's my team. I do want to talk about your team who are kicking off the season with a visit to Chicago next week. New coach, new era.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams going in the first round for a lot of people. I think that's crazy personally, but you know he does put up stats. But whatever. Aaron Rodgers back, new coach, possible new lease of life. How are you feeling with the Bears in the same division as another team people are talking about for potential Super Bowl favorites?
I'm happy with the start that we have anyway, because you want to prove yourself in Green Bay. You beat the Bears and then you beat the Vikings, and that's who we've got in our first two. I would have preferred if we were at home to the Bears, but you know, ifs and buts and maybes. It's still an unbelievable season opener, and I cannot wait. Listen, Matt LaFleur, I think McCarthy, we were talking about even halfway through last year, was the right decision. And we have lost a couple of weapons and a completely new defense as well. Clinton Dix is in Chicago. Clay Matthews is gone. And even going Saka mentioned Cobb as well. And usually I'm stupidly confident about the Packers, but now I'm comfortable enough to think that we are in transition, and I don't mind if we miss out, which means that we're probably going to put up a serious fight in this division. I think, like the two or three we talked about earlier, the NFC North is going to be a lot of fun this year with the Vikings and the Bears. The Lions, listen, whatever. Matt Patricia, not this year for me, but I think that it's going to be an absolute. I cannot pick who's going to win it between the Bears and the Vikings. I don't even want to put the Packers in that conversation because I don't want to get my hopes up. But listen, I'm excited for LaFleur. I'm all right with us having a quiet year if it's all about rebuilding. I think Rodgers is still around. He's still got a couple of elite years left in him at his age. Plenty of time. I think we'll be all right.
there was a lot that went right for the Bears last year. And they remind me of a team we spoke about already, that Jacksonville side who nearly won the AFC a couple of years ago. Because a lot of the things that went right for the Bears in being the best defense in football are things that aren't sustainable on a year-on-year basis. For example, they had a huge jump in interception rate to make them the league's top defense. Sack rate as well. Now, a lot of that is down to the signing of Khalil Mack, and class is permanent. You know what I mean? Former temporary, class is permanent. Khalil Mack is an absolute beast. I think that's how that phrase goes. But a lot of their stuff tends to regress. I like the Vikings for this division. I think they are another quality outfit. They have quality throughout the team. Dalvin Cook, of course, is back at running back. Yeah. Their defense is severely underrated. Like, they have a seriously good defense and have for the past few years. I think this is the year they click. I think the Vikings are taking this division. I feel relatively confident in that. I think the Bears are going to regress. I don't like them as Super Bowl favorites. I think that's kind of that lazy argument. And again, we've mentioned the Panthers and the Cardinals in the past where like they kind of have a good run and everyone's like, well, they'll be back. And we're now at the stage where if they were going to be back, they'd have come back by now, and they haven't. You know what I mean? They haven't been bad, but they've just been middling to average, and which is where you'd expect them. And the Cardinals, in their case, have been piss poor since that one miracle season. I don't think the Bears are going to be piss poor. I think they're going to compete. I think this is probably going to be the division, the one where like the AFC West last year, where all four teams were in contention, all four could beat each other. With the Lions, you know, they've a lot to like. I think they're going to be spoilers. I think the Packers are going to be, you know, up until week 12, 13, they're going to be thereabouts, and then they're going to be spoilers towards the end. They're going to be the team.
That's fine.
They're going to be the Broncos last year. They're going to be the team who can beat anyone and beat them convincingly and look great on a week-to-week basis. But I think they're going to, ultimately not have enough to pull in, to get a 10-6 season or an 11-5 to get to the division or their wild card spot. It's going to be between the Bears and Vikings, and I like the Vikings a lot. I think it's their turn, and I think they're peaking at the right time, and I think the Bears are going to regress. And where the ball bounced their way, it's going to bounce the other way, and that happens a lot. Like I said earlier, in a 16-game NFL season, so I'm liking the Vikings this year. Last but not least, I want to talk about Drew Brees and the NFC South, because last year, Drew Brees had a season of two halves, all right? Absolutely phenomenal. As he turns 40, okay? There's talk of it there was talk of him retiring last season if they won the Super Bowl. Obviously, we saw the no call that ended up controversy sending the Rams to the Super Bowl. But then, after going 10-1, at the start and being talked about for MVP early in the season, Drew Brees dropped very, very quickly. And his numbers were similar to the likes of Derek Carr or Case Keenum by the end of the season, the playoffs included. Brett Favre and Tom Brady are the only quarterbacks who've done a full season at the age of 40. It's a hard thing to do. Last season as well, another thing that went the Saints' way is they went 5-1 in close games. That's one thing that you need to look at. If teams get a high score in that tends to drop back the other way, and that's something that regresses back towards the mean. Close games, it tends to be a 50-50 thing, and if a team is winning a lot, that means their record is going to, not drop off the face of the earth. They're not going to, you see extreme versions like the Jags going from AFC Championship to being an absolute mess within a year. That's rare. But do you think that we saw Drew Brees peak last year? Do you think that we saw, and then the quick decline began? Do you think that this is the end? Do you think that was a blip and Drew Brees is one of those guys, he's the best statistical quarterback the NFL has ever seen? But do you think that he can come back this year and be Drew Brees one more year? If he is, then the Saints have a lot to like about possibly being Super Bowl contenders. If he's not, did the Saints have enough to be maybe the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning's last season and have enough elsewhere to carry a loyal, heroic quarterback towards competing for a Super Bowl? And if the Saints are to decline, who's poised to step up in that division?
I don't think the Saints will decline personally, but I don't think it's going to be another, like Drew Brees. It's not going to be repeated last year in terms of stats. He probably will. I think it might actually go in the other way instead. So you might start off slowly and then build up. They got rid of Mark Ingram. They kept on to Kamara. That was always going to be one or the other, and it was always going to be Kamara because of just age, probably. They got a Latavius Murray, I think, from the Vikings, though. That's a solid signing as well.
Yeah.
Like, Bridgewater is a backup quarterback as well, so that's not a bad quarterback to have if Breeze does start to fade away. In terms of the division, though, like, this is, apart from maybe the NFC North, this is the one I'm going to be watching the most. And I think that's down to the Atlanta Falcons, personally, because you've got Matt Ryan, a quarterback, who's no one is talking about. You have got Devontae Freeman, of course, at running back, and then you got a trio of wide receivers, Jones, Ridley, and Sanu. Any team would want that. Like Austin Hooper, a tight end, there's another one we could have talked about in the tight end conversation. That's a solid, that's a brilliant offense. That's a really, like, very, very solid offense. Panthers, Super Cam, as always. McCaffrey at running back. You got that. DJ Moore is in the second or third year now. I think, like, there's a lot to like about them, and even the Bucs. I mean, Winston, the question marks again. Like, the Bucs are kind of that team that will just upset anyone anytime. Mike Evans, top wide receiver last year in fantasy, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a really, really open division. I've done it the last 2 years, and I think the Saints get to the Super Bowl again, because the last 2 years you had the Minneapolis Miracle, which was their own fault, and then you had this no call last year, which wasn't really their fault. Obviously, no guarantee that they would have won the game without that no call, but it was looking very likely. I think they get to the Super Bowl, and I think Tom Brady and Drew Brees go off and live on a farm together, with Peyton Manning, with probably Eli Manning as well. They all live happily ever after, and hopefully, and we start to see a new generation coming next year.
That is a big call. It would be an awesome Super Bowl, Tom Brady and Drew Brees. We would love that.
Oh, I didn't say Brady was getting to the Super Bowl.
Okay, all right. It'd be an interesting one, though. I like it. I have a weird feeling Brees is getting injured this year. And I don't know why. It's just because he's got so lucky with health. Like, you think of Peyton Manning getting injured. You think of Tom Brady getting injured. You think of Aaron Rodgers getting injured in the past. We've never had Brees miss a season. And that's just one weird thing. Maybe this is Brees' last season. Maybe it ends after 4 games. Maybe he doesn't have a say. I just have a weird feeling about that. I don't know why. I'm not wishing it. I'm not hoping it happens. I love Drew Brees. I'd love to see him make another Super Bowl. If the Eagles can't, I'm all in on the Drew Brees hype train. You know what I mean? One more year. He served me well so many years as a fantasy quarterback as well. So
yeah, last year was me.
I feel that. Yeah, so you get it. You get, like, the great feeling you have when Drew Brees is playing well, and just the feeling of confidence going into your fantasy football game. Like, I get why the Saints fans love him so much. He just gives you that confidence. So that's something to take into account. It's tough. I agree with your assessment about the Falcons. I think we're due a great Falcons year. They still have the same nucleus of the team, and like, the Falcons either click or they don't. Some years it's just weird. Like, Julio Jones went on that, like, I think it was 9 weeks before he scored a touchdown. I remember I had him as my number 1 pick in a season where half my team got injured, and I really needed him to score a touchdown. But then he was awesome once he did. He scored nearly every week. So I do think the Falcons are going to take this. I think there's going to be weird shit happening here. The type of unpredictable shit, like injuries or something going on with the Saints. I just don't feel it. So let's get to it. We talk about this every year. Let's talk about, I want you to pick the championship games and your Super Bowl and who wins it.
Right. Championship games. Kansas City Chiefs beat the New England Patriots. New Orleans Saints beat the Chicago Bears.
Interesting.
New Orleans Saints beat the Chiefs. That's what I called last year. It's what I should have got last year. I think Breeze, maybe it's storylines, maybe it's unbelieving too much. I think Breeze rides off into the sunset with a Super Bowl ring.
Oh, amazing. That would be cool. And if they did the Peyton Manning, I loved Peyton Manning's last season where everyone else played for him. You know what I mean? Where everyone else stepped up so he could do it and he could ride off into the sunset. Like, he'd done that for so many teams and he'd been that guy.
Yeah.
that like when like it's more poetic that he struggled, even though it was tough to watch at times and live through because he was that kind of almost father figure like that we had. But like he was always reliable. He was always there. He was always calm. He was always cool. He always knew what to do. So it was tough to watch him struggle. But then when his team stepped up and took him to a Super Bowl, it's one of the greatest stories in modern sports, and it goes very under the radar. So for Breeze to get that, it would be nice. For me, and again, this is a crapshoot, so I'm going with two narratives. I'm going with two rematches. Oh no, am I going to contradict what I said? Right, okay, I need to have another look over this.
There's so many that you could easily make the argument
I'm
for.
picking the Chiefs beating the Pats. I said that earlier. I'm picking them in the rematch. They're beating the Pats.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles beat the Bears in a rematch from their doink game, where everyone's looking at it as this is the Bears' revenge game. And then I think the final, the Super Bowl, is going to be the Eagles versus Andy Reid, the former Eagles coach. Eagles Chiefs. I'm going to go Chiefs to win that and reverse jinx the Eagles. I'm not going to go out and say the Eagles are going to win it because then I'm going to ruin their season if I say that. So yeah, that's
Andy Reid winning the Super Bowl. Really?
Against the Eagles, though. Against the Eagles.
Yeah, true.
Super Bowls are American sports movies. Look at what we're talking about. The Peyton Manning Sunset Game. You know, that's a sports movie. That's what happens. He finally wins the Super Bowl by beating the Eagles and crushing the new generation and beating his old protege, Doug Peterson. It'd be an amazing Super Bowl. I actually really want that now. If anything else happens, I'm going to be really disappointed. But I can't wait. It all starts next Thursday. The Lowe's Bowl draft on Monday. We don't have any more spaces, so I'm not advertising that, guys. We're done. We're wrapped up as far as the Lowe's Bowl is concerned. I can't wait to be involved in it. It's going to be great crack. The NFL season. Oh, I'm so here for it. This is the last Sunday. This is the last Sunday until 2020 that we won't have 7 hours of commercial-free, uninterrupted football, Kendo. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Nash. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up. We're going to have to check in semi-regularly throughout the season whenever there's big stuff on. So great to chat to you as always, Kendo. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Follow Kendo on Twitter at KendoCCFC for his ramblings throughout the season as well. If you want to catch up on his hot takes and laugh at him remember to laugh at him on Sunday when the Dubs win and he said they go out in the Super Bowl. I give you permission.
And where did I say they go out?
In the Super 8s.
There you go.
Yeah.
You said the Super Bowl.
Oh, the Super. It's confusing. There's a lot happening. Super 8, Super Bowl, Driver 5. Yeah, it's all amazing. I can't wait, guys. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Kendo. Thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy the football. Football's back, guys. It's going to be class. Enjoy Sunday. Up the Dubs. There, I said it. I want them to win. Right. We'll chat to you next time on Nash.